What's up, Wizards? It's Dev and Ziggy. We're from Mtg. We like it a magic. You know what? I know a little something about wolves. You can find me on multiple online leaderboards, often in the top 10. Pat myself on the back for various racing games under the name Duh Wolf, simply. I also mained Saberwolf and Killer Instinct Gold and won a lot of money in college doing that. True story. I also mained Wolf in Smash Ultimate since day one, taking him to a few tournaments, won exactly $0. Also a true story, but still love Star Wolf. Plus, my dad's biker name was Wolf. That's probably the coolest true story. I wish I had a picture of that. I don't, but this is my dad. But anyway, I also own a wolf. His name is Ziggy. He's down here. This is a big old kitty. He's basically a wolf. But anyway, suffice to say, I know and love wolves. So I feel like I'm a pretty good authority to bring this deck to you today. I talked about this thing on Twitter a couple of weeks ago and how shocked I was at how good the deck actually is. It seems like it should be really, really silly, but Wolves is actually great, and I'm not the only YouTuber that's reported this deck has brought them a lot of success. So sit back, I'll tell you everything to know about this deck. Sort of Howl 2 guide, if you will. Now, first of all, I gotta break this to you. There's not too many, Wolf payoffs in the deck. We're not gonna resort to playing Icon of Ancestry or anything silly like that. We're just gonna play old Tolsimir, Tulsi Gabbard right here, the professor himself. Doesn't he look like the professor to you? But anyway, this is all the wolf payoff that the deck actually needs. It's kind of a good card in and of itself, It's usually a 2-for-1, if not a 3-for-1. They just leave you with 2 wolves and one of their guys is suddenly 8 up, or et up, as we say here in the American South. But we actually do say et up some of the time. I've heard it before. But anyway, you can eat one of your opponent's guys, gain some life back. That is insane against aggro, and just be left with at least 1, if not 2 threats on the board. So the card's ridiculous enough by itself, but it combos with pretty much any wolf in the deck, and it especially combos with cards that just make wolves every single turn, like Garruk. Curse Huntsman, bringing the blunts, man. And I don't mean the blunts like you think I do. I mean blunt force trauma. Making 2 wolves every turn. Again, the card is good enough by itself. Even if it just had that mode on it, it would kind of be good enough if it was just a planeswalker with only that mode. But of course, this will let you blow up creatures and draw cards, which is really awesome. That's a good mode. And the ultimate just says that you win, especially depending on if you're ahead at the time or your board state's good at all. You more or less win off Garruk's ultimate, so that's pretty sweet right there. But just making 2 wolves a turn is good enough, especially if you got Tulsi G out, because at that point, Tolsimir, excuse me, if you've got Tolsimir out, at that point you're just killing 2 small creatures a turn, gaining 6 life a turn. Sometimes you can even kill a 1 toughness or a 1/1 guy or something, an Edgewall Innkeeper, for instance, and just keep one of your wolves, and it's just, you're just making so many wolves, killing guys every turn, gaining life. It's just a ridiculous interaction. But again, both cards, Tolsimir and Garruk, are good enough by themselves. It just works so well together that they form this ridiculous top end that's tough for a lot of decks to really deal with. Now, in a fair world, Garruk would be the only card that just makes wolves every turn and interacts with Tolsimir in that way, but it's not a fair world, especially when you play Magic. It is not a fair world, so we're also playing 4 copies of Nightpack Ambusher, because this too just puts wolves flying out, it puts them out every turn. We don't even have to do anything. We don't have to do anything at all. And if we do, we don't get the wolves. But that kind of sucks. But if we don't have anything else to do, we just draw a land or something. Or otherwise draw dead for the turn. Or a 3/3 wolf is better than the card we drew. That happens some of the times, You just say go. Get your wolf, and if you have a Tolsimir out, fight something, gain some life. Just, again, the interaction between Tolsimir and wolves that put other wolves out every turn is just kind of obviously good, and again, forms this crazy top end. Plus, this can be flashed in to be used as a removal spell, if nothing else, and I really like that application. And just because we can't play spells on our turn doesn't mean we can't do anything, You got some activated abilities in this deck, we got some planeswalkers in this deck, so there's still plenty that we can do on our turn if we want to, without actually having to play any spells. That's most of our spells are going to be sorcery speed, lots of creatures and planeswalkers and whatnot, but again, on turns where you draw blank, or just a 3/3 wolf was better than whatever garbage you did draw, like a Gilded Goose or something like that, Paradise Druid late in the game, then it's really nice to have Ambusher out. You know, something else really stupid with Tolsimir is a wolf that just fights something when he comes into play anyway, because now he gets to fight two things. That's Wicked Wolf. Again, what? Let's say card is very good in and of itself. That's one of the secrets to this wolf deck, is that, like, none of the cards we're playing are bad. Like, in a vacuum, it's like, it looks like we're just playing, like, silly wolf synergy. When you hear four-color wolves, it's like, oh, that's going to be bad. But no, like, every card in the deck is just good on its own, and if it does get synergy, like, it's broken, right? So, like, a card like this, that is especially true of, because you can just bring it down, kill something with it, sacrifice a food to make sure it's indestructible. If you have a Tolsimir out, it gets to fight something else, and you gain 3 life. And if you sacrifice the food, it's indestructible. So, like, it's very easy to just blow 2 things up, gain 3 life, and whoops, got a 4/4 Wicked Wolf. Whoops, like, whew. That's all the wolves. So, yeah. Guess we'll pack it in. See you next time. Just remember to support me on Patreon. I'm just kidding. We got to play, like, spells and planeswalkers. There's all kinds of stuff in this deck, but it's actually not going to take, like, too long to explain most of what's left in here, because we're just playing, like, 4-color good stuff. You know, you heard me say Gilded Goose, Paradise Druid earlier. We're also playing Once Upon a Time, but you probably already knew that. 3 copies of OUAT in the deck. Ooyat in the deck. You know, we don't necessarily need all 4 copies of this, but it is nice to cast for free. We're playing green, so let's play Once Upon a Time. And also, it'll just help us find, like, Tolsimirs and Nightpack Ambushers and Wicked Wolves and stuff late in the game. So, absolutely, yes. Plus, it fixes our mana in much the same way that these other 2 things do. You know, it doesn't ramp us, but it does help us get, you know, the 1 white source that we need to cast a Tolsimir, or the 1 blue source we need for the blue card in the deck. We'll get to it in a second. But Paradise Druid and Gilded Goose are also good for our mana fixing needs, but the ramp is especially important on these. You know, if we get, for instance, turn 1 Gilded Goose and a turn 2 Paradise Druid, that would normally mean turn 3 Nissa in this format, right? But we can get turn 3 Tolsimir pretty easily, followed up with the Garruk, and it's really, really hard for a lot of opponents to get out from under that ridiculous mountain of value. So, you know, just like other decks that want to play 5 and 6 drops relatively early in the game, I mean, in Standard, that's the only way to play them, is relatively early in the game. So we're kind of forced into playing both of these. But they're not bad cards, you know. Hexproof is nice on the Paradise Druid. You're always guaranteed to get something out of it if you want to get mana out of it. But it's a decent blocker and even a nice attacker on occasion. But Gilded Goose is always impressive in that it can just, like, make food. That's great, because you got Wicked Wolf in the deck. Sometimes you're just trying to go the extra mile, make sure you last a turn or 2 more against an aggro deck. Gilded Goose can just make food for you in that case. There's all kinds of stuff this card does. We've also got some removal in the deck because we're in the colors to play removal. So a couple of copies of Assassin's Trophy, 2 Murderous Rider, and a Fine Finality in here. Now, you actually will use the sweeper half of the Fine Finality a good bit. You know, there's been a few games where you just go like, okay, Gilded Goose, Paradise Druid, and then, like, turn 4, you go Fine Finality, the finality half of Fine Finality, and you kind of don't care that you're losing 2 guys because you also killed everything else. So that can sometimes be really, really important just to have sort of emergency access to a sweeper. But the find half of this is great for just getting back, you know, cards that are essentially game over if you get them back. You know, Tolsimir or Wicked Wolf or Nightpack Ambusher can just lead to so much value by the time it's all said and done. So getting them back with a find is really important, and getting 2 of them back at the same time is especially nasty. So play a copy of that. And I do count it as removal, though. But obviously, Assassin's Trophy and Murderous Rider are straight up removal. And Assassin's Trophy I'm pretty firm on, but I don't know that you have to play these 2 copies of Murderous Rider. I just like having an answer to an early Oko or Frasca or Nissa or whatever they got going on the other side of the table right now. And I like as many answers as we can get, so I want to play at least a couple of copies of Rider. Speaking of Frasca, we're playing ourselves 2 copies of the Queen. Yas Queen is like super 2017, or is it like 2016? It's fairly old. Like, I'm pretty sure only wine moms say Yas Queen at this point. But anyway, Frasca is a pretty sweet card in the current format. She can just blow up Okos. It's kind of all she needs to do, but there's like a million other targets that she can destroy. You can blow up Cavalcade of Calamities with this. I've done that a bunch of times, but it's also like a card advantage engine for the deck, and you'd be surprised how super important that is a good bit of the time, because we really don't have too many other real card advantage pieces outside of, like, Fine Finality, which is, like, technically card advantage, but We just don't have a real engine in this deck for drawing cards. So very often we'll just get down into top deck mode once we have laid down all our big threats, and that can be a little stressful. So it's nice to have a piece that actually draws cards for us. As far as the ultimate goes, I don't know. Never used it. Played a bunch of games with this deck. Never once hit the ultimate with it. But Frasca is still a really important planeswalker right now, if only for the meta uses that she has. And finally, why is there blue in the deck? You probably know already, but we're playing 4 Oko Thief of Crowns. Sorry, Frisbee75. In the Patreon post where this deck was in the poll, Frisbee went to the replies and was like, just any deck so long as it doesn't have $40 mythics. So, I'm sorry that Abs and Wolves won the poll, Frisbee, but hey, you get to be the Patreon shout out for the video, so that might feel nice. I wonder if you're even watching the video, because there's $40 mythics in this deck, so I hope you didn't skip this one. But anyway, Oko's just kind of silly. It's just a ridiculous card, the best card in Standard, and I want to play it until it gets banned, because it probably will. Here's hoping, at least. I want to go on record again and again and again as saying, this card probably shouldn't be Standard legal. We just shouldn't do it. I saw somebody tweet the other day that, probably what happened is that the second ability was supposed to be a -1. But it got sent to the printers as a +1. They didn't catch it until it was too late. And that might be I'm serious. That might actually be what happened. I hate that that's a +1. But that said, you can't beat them, join them. So we'll play 4 copies of Oko. And we still have the ability in this deck to go, turn 1 Goose, turn 2 Oko, and then snarkily say good game on Arena. Don't do that to people, by the way. I can't tell you how many people have dropped turn 2 Oko and they'll be like, good game, monocle. Don't. You almost always end up looking silly. I don't know why anybody still does that, because they lose a lot of the games that they do that, but they do it the next game. I don't get it. But anyway, we can land turn 2 Oko in this deck too, and then Oko into Wicked Wolf is still a really disgusting play. Just keep that dumb play in mind. But, just Oko backing up any of our other planeswalkers like Garruk or Frasca, that's also a really good play line. And just, I'm sorry Oko has to be there, but we can make the mana to do it. We've got Paradise Druid and Gilded Goose in this deck, plus Fable Passage to grab blue sources if we need to. It's just not too hard to get this 1 blue mana. It's really not. And if you can play Oko, you kind of might as well play Oko. And I hate to be that guy, but the truth is the truth. Oko's a dumb card. While we have access to it, we should probably shoehorn it in, because it goes so well with most of what we're doing, and it doesn't even have to, because it's just the best card in Standard. Let's play it. Please ban this card, though, so I no longer have to use such ridiculous rationale. But anyway, here's the lands. The land count is actually kept down a little bit by the presence of Paradise Druid and Gilded Goose and Once Upon a Time. We have to have a bunch of different colored sources if we're going to reliably get all 4 of our colors, but it's not actually that hard in this format when we have all the aforementioned cards plus Fabled Passage. Now here's our sideboard right here. There's some obvious stuff like Veil of Summer, which you will play some number of if you're in green, and then there's Noxious Grasp, which you play some number of if you're in black. So we'll just play 3 Veil for Noxious Grasp, just the best sideboard cards in all of Standarddom at the moment, so we'll do that. But we'll also take advantage of the fact that we have access to blue sources and play Dovin's Veto. I want some sort of sideboard counterspell in here. Just my theory is that if you're playing blue, you put counterspells in your sideboard. If they're not in the main deck, you put them in your board. You need them. So, a couple of copies of Veto, plus a couple of copies of Deputy of Detention. This is just nice against everything. Cavalcade of Calamity, a bunch of tokens, for instance. This is always good against, but it's good against 3-mana planeswalkers like Oko, for instance, and on down. So, just a really good card right now that actually could make a 1-of in the main deck, but I just don't want any more blue cards in there. So, especially blue cards we have to cast on turn 3 if we really want to play them when we want to. So, I just don't know that this actually belongs in the main, but it definitely does belong in the side, because there's just so many flexible things for it to do in game 2 and 3. But there's also a couple of copies of Shifting Ceratops against blue decks. I don't have to really explain that too much. A copy of Legion's End, again, against tokens and decks that play, a bunch of 4 of and stuff, Cavalcade of Calamity and whatnot. This can be great against. It's not as good as it was in the Field of the Dead days, but it's still a really playable card with a bunch of high-value targets right now, so at least 1 Legion's End. And then a Tameo Collector of Tales, mostly, and I'm being serious, against the Rakdos and Jund Sacrifice decks, which are actually on the tier list somewhere in Standard right now. It's 2.5, tier 2, 2.5, something like that. But there's still a known quantity, and a card that keeps us from sacrificing things is really good value. Plus, it keeps us from discarding against thought erasures, and also just is a sweet card that gets us a bunch of card advantage over the course of the game. So yes, we'll play this in grindy matches too. Just a lot Tamiyo can do. And here are your power rankings. A final score of 69. Nice. And the highest score that a deck has gotten on the channel in a good long time. But this actually is the most competitive deck that I've covered in a while. If you couldn't tell by the price tag, this deck is really expensive, so it better be good. And it is. It makes the bar. It's a much better deck in game 2 and 3 than it is in game 1. Traditional mid-range, but it's still a really good deck in game 1. Don't get me wrong, it's got some of the best cards in Standard, even Wolf theme notwithstanding. Again, I'll say that one more time, just the fact that we kind of shoehorned ourselves into sort of Wolf theme, we're doing it for the memes and all that. It doesn't mean we have to play bad cards. Every single card in the deck is super powerful, hence a very high power score in the end. But, I think, if you don't mind, to hold your interest now for something completely different. What I want to do with the leftover time in this video, because if you haven't noticed, it's been a short video so far. I actually want to kind of guide you through 2 whole games with this deck and kind of end the video on some gameplay. We got one game against a mono red aggro deck, and then another game that I think is much more indicative of what this deck is supposed to do, and that's against a mono green stompy deck. But let me take you into those now. So we start off here in this first game against Mono Red without the hottest of hands. We do have a little bit of ramp in an Assassin's Trophy, fair amount of lands, but nothing to actually ramp into. No real action, but you'll see how the deck does in those situations. We do get a Gilded Goose and a Paradise Druid down turn 1, then turn 2. Our opponent goes Crater Maker, and they'll get Krenko a little bit later on in this game. So this is a Mono Red Goblins deck. I think this is illustrative of how well this deck often does against aggro once it's able to turn the corner and start doing some of the things that it wants to do. On this turn, we can get Nightpack Ambusher. We don't block Crater Maker with it because I'm a little bit scared of shock. Our opponent goes Krenko, we go Nightpack Ambusher, sacrificing the food to do so. At this point, we can just play Frasca, get rid of their Krenko, and we're left with this ridiculous board position that's going to be really hard for any aggro opponent to get out from under. And to illustrate that, let's watch how the rest of this game plays out.
Will serve us. One life, and all your cares are gone. As long as we win, nothing else matters.
Now in the second game here, we're up against a ramp deck of sorts, and I think this is actually a very good indication of how this deck can come from behind. And it's really resilient when it needs to be, and how well the life gain aspects can serve the deck at certain points, because our opponent is going to get us down to 5, but through some crafty playing and a very lucky copy of Finality, we're able to pull this win off.
Step out of the shadows. It's not often I'm outmaneuvered.
king, wild and sovereign and free. Welcome to the feast.
So there you have it. I think those two games are fairly illustrative of what this deck is trying to do all in all. We've got good plays on every important turn of the game. Turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all that. But once we actually do execute our plan, which we can do very easily and quickly with the ramp available to us in the deck, then we can just, bury our opponent in this mountain of card advantage and wolves and fight triggers and gaining life and all that. Just so much this deck does once it actually gets all the pieces in place. And on the way to getting the pieces in place, it often plays one of the best cards in Standard on every turn of the game. Just let you know this too. 4-Color Wolves actually just finished in the top 8 of a tournament right up the street from me in Atlanta. A real tournament, SCG tournament, I believe. So if that weren't proof enough for you, then I don't know what is. There is something there to this deck, and even though it is fun, you get to play Wolves and go like, "Ow!" whenever you play something. Like, it's fun to play Wolves, and I'm biased towards Wolves. I love Wolves, but there actually is something there if you're looking for a really competitive deck for this meta right now. But anyway, you want to try it out, click the first link in the description, go over to TCG Player, pick up any pieces that you might need for the deck. Helps me out when you click the link or purchase stuff. That helps me out too. But all you really got to do is click the link. That'll help you dude out. But anyway, I think that's it for now. Just let me know how you felt about this deck and the sort of new format that we tried. That's very important to me. If you enjoyed it, let me know down there in the comments section. If you didn't enjoy it, let me know down there in the comments section. All last season, I was trying to sort of blend gameplay with the deck techs. And this time, I just kind of went deck tech gameplay. So let me know how you sort of felt about that format down there and if we should continue with that or keep experimenting. But anyway, I think that's it for now. Just do all the YouTube stuff, like before you cut the lights off, all that. Share it around if you want to. You don't have to do that one. Nobody actually does that one anymore. But subscribe if you haven't done it yet. Trying to get to 120 right now. Get us there. Hit the bell for the notifications too, so you know when I actually put out videos. Support me on Patreon if you enjoy my content that much. It's only $1 a month to do it. And you get to vote on what decks and stuff that we do next. And, actually help me make better content. If you don't like my content, how about you lend me $1 every month? Anyway, I do work really hard. If you want to reward that kind of content creation, hit up the Patreon, link in the description, or patreon.com/SBMTG. And you can follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev. I never say that one, but it is an option to you. But anyway, I think that's it. I think I'm actually done. So I guess I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from the Blaze. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.